Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the Untangle Tech Talk series. Today we'll be discussing how the web filter application can help you in filtering all your categories that you have running through your network. My name is Shannon Miles and I'm part of the product marketing team here today, and I'll be your host. I also have with us John Coffin. He's our director of QA for many years, and he will be presenting this presentation and also demonstrating in the Untangle NG Firewall application, showing how this application works and answering all the questions that you guys have. Next slide. Next slide, please, John.
Oh, sorry, I did go next. Oh, this stuff.
No?
I'm on the next slide. Are you not seeing it?
No, I'm not seeing it.
Oh, try now. Sorry.
There we go. So just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. As you can tell, there are sometimes some issues that you may have when you're logging in and can't hear us. So make sure you select the correct audio settings on your right-hand side. If you do select to use a telephone, you will need to dial in and use the access code provided. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so you will have the option to rewatch or revisit areas that you need to follow up on, and you can share the link later on. We'll be sending the webinar recording about 24 hours after this webinar has ended. We'll also be answering questions throughout this presentation, so please just submit them in the Q&A box and we'll try and get to them. If we don't get to any during the webinar, we will try to follow up and also post in the forums. And as always, you can send questions to sales@untangle.com and support@untangle.com. Now, before I pass this on to John, I just want to reiterate that this is a very highly technical webinar. So if you're not familiar with the Untangle solution or any networking concepts, I would suggest watching one of our 101 webinar series, which is more high-level topic. And you can find a full list of our webinars, past and future, on our website. And with that, I will pass it over to John.
Well, thanks so much, Shannon. Again, WebFilter is probably our most widely used application on Untangle. It's probably the main reason people get started with Untangle and then expand from there. A lot of the main reasons that people use WebFilter is to block some traffic that they're not interested going through their network, especially inappropriate content. A lot of schools and learning centers and so forth who are required to do certain blocking because of the Children's Internet Protection Act use Untangle, because we are certified for that. And then also it's an added level of protection against malware and false bot sites. It's surprising how well they block a lot of malware sites very quickly before people get to them. Some of the features is real-time classification and updates. The paid web filter gets updated almost daily for new sites and rematching for different categories. It makes it very useful in identifying new sites very quickly on how they might be listed, whether it's a malware site or it's an advertising site, or if it's a proper content site. There is some SSL filtering on WebFilter. There's something called SNI, and just to briefly go over this, is that modern day browsers will provide the domain of an encrypted site it's going to. This is something fairly new, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, that in order to allow some filtering on encrypted sites, they're passing on the domain in the clear, so we're able to look at that. If you want to go to a higher level of scanning on encrypted sites, you really need to use WebFilter with HTTP Inspector, which decrypts the traffic before it's sent on. We could go on that on a little different webinar that covers that area a little more carefully, because there's a lot of prep work. But without doing all that extra work, you do get some level of encrypted inspection. The web filter has over 140 categories. There's millions and millions of sites that are categorized, and they do a really good job. The nice thing about that, if you find a site that's not properly categorized, inside the Untangle you can actually go in and suggest a new category for that particular site. So it's very useful in that regard. Block categories. So this is where you're going to select what kind of categories. It's quite a long list. You can go through. We do provide some basic categories that are checked by default, but you can go through and check them more. This is actually an example of one that I use at home, and I can show you kind of the categories I've selected. I really don't check a lot of sites just because, you know, it's really difficult to maintain this on a constant basis if you want to restrict it more. If I was at a school, again, it would probably be checked, a lot more would be checked on this. Some of the areas that is just pages of it. So if you need to look up a site, for example, and you want to see what kind of category it is, so for example, I want to see what Google is categorized that, I can go ahead and say search engine. So I can go and say, oh, I want to block search engines because Google's the type of site I want to block. And I can go ahead and block that by just using the site lookup button. It's pretty easy to do. Some of the other parts of that is that you can actually go in and rename the descriptions on these. This is really useful if, for example, if you're at a location that uses a language other than English. And let's say you have your Untangle set to Spanish. Unfortunately, these descriptions are not translated in the language module, so you can go ahead and change this to your native language. And some of the other things here. Flag is kind of a special category. Is like you want to keep track of them, but you don't want to block them. Common item this is used in companies is they check the flag for job search. They want to know if people are starting to look for work and maybe get an inside idea of, you know, what's going on in the company. That's almost every site is categorized in reports. Flag is just a special category that separates out everything. I can show you how that works over in reports. So if we look at all web events, we can see what categories were used in ours. So even though I haven't checked the flag for a lot of these sites, every site that I've gone to is categorized individually. So if you see particular sites that you're, you know, say, oh, I really like to block that. For example, I want to block this extended Amazon. I can go over here and say, oh, it's online shipping, online shopping. So I can go over the block categories and then block that. So I say online shopping right here. So I can go ahead and block that. That's probably an easier way to find these sites than going through here individually. Some of the other past sites. A lot of times what you'll do is you end up, for example, let's say I want to block search engines. I don't want to block all search engines, for example, but I want to go over here and add a block site, but I want to block yahoo.com. So what I'll do is just go ahead and hit the add, type in the domain, and you can do this in many ways. You can say, I want to block, this will block all, not only yahoo.com, but also any derivatives of it. For example, like images, it'll automatic. And you don't need to put the asterisk in front of it. It's assumed that you want to block anything above it. If there's variations on the domain, for example, maybe Yahoo is using variations on it, you could do something like this, and that would also block it. So I want to go ahead and block yahoo.com. So I'll go ahead and click the block button and apply that. I want to make sure I change that back. Okay. So now I can go, for example, to yahoo.com, and I get my block page. And I have it set to override, so I can actually override this if I need to. What I was going into reference about the, so what if I went to an encrypted site, like I'd say, well, I'm going to try to get by this bypass filter by just using HTTPS. So if I go to this, you don't get the block page, but it just won't allow you through because it's noticing, it's redirecting it to the Untangle, and the SSL certificate does not match. So you get this site untrusted. The connection is untrusted, and you can't go on from there. That's what makes it, not as a clean block page, but it does block encrypted sites. If you want a better detail on that, the best thing to do is use HTTPS Inspector. So that's in pass sites. So for example, let's say I want to pass a site. Let's see. Oh, good thing I have an example here. So I have online ads blocked currently in WebFilter, but we had a problem going to worldmarket.com, which is like a furniture type store. And what I did was add a bypass. So I added these two. So even though they're considered online ad, it doesn't allow the word market to pop up. So what I did is I kept my blocked category, but I added this enlighten as a bypass. So you notice I don't have a .org or .com because I just wanted either one, because I noticed it was using both .com and .net. So what I did was just added a generic domain to it, and that allows me to get to the site. And I put a description in there so I knew why I added this. And that is past sites. So some of the advanced features. This is where we get into a lot of the more tricky areas. This is the option you need to select if you actually want to try to process encrypted traffic, which is HTTPS. This will use the SNI, which is the browser providing the information in the clear for what domain. And with that domain, in turn, it can be the category can be looked up and see if you're blocking that category, and then present the connection is not trusted, which effectively blocks the site to do. One note here is this Enforce YouTube for schools. Google has abandoned that API, so that actually does not work anymore. We'll be working on some new versions of that in the future, but unfortunately, Google does not tell people in advance that they're going to change their API, and so they changed it before we had a chance to make changes in our product. So I know this is still in here, but just realize that this is not effective anymore. Enforcing the safe search for popular search engine is a really good feature to put in. Yahoo, Google, and Bing provide, if you add a special tag to the search criteria that goes out, they know that you want to have a certain amount of filtering in the results they bring back. So what we do, if somebody goes and puts in a search engine, we add a tag as it goes out to one of the major search engines to say, hey, we only want safe searches. So we want to filter out more explicit content. So when we get the search results back, it's a pre-filtered list of search criteria. It's quite useful. I really recommend it. It also blocks out a lot of malware sites that can go through there. You can also block pages from IP address only. So, for example, some people work around the areas by using IP addresses that might not be categorized, and you can select that. It's it's not often that you see people using that. Some people like to block IP addresses directly because sometimes phishing links use an IP address instead of a domain to kind of get people to click on things. It's something you have to kind of look out for. This pass refers match pass sites is interesting because a lot of times you'll find a website that's blocked, but you actually, because it's in a certain category, you like that category, but you want that site to be available. So the best thing to do is to go ahead and put a pass for that. The problem is it might in turn forward it to some other site. And so we had a lot of problems that people would have to have a chain of pass sites in order to get a certain site that they wanted to go to. So what we did is now if you're passed on from a site that's in the pass list to another site, and even though that site might be blocked because of the category, we're going to go ahead and pass it because it was referred. There's something called the referred during the URL pass, and we take a look at that, and if it's in the pass site, it helps. Things that it really helps on that is, for example, certain kind of searches on specific shopping areas. I know like Amazon, they in turn do a multi forward link when you're doing searches on their site. And if you were blocking, for example, Amazon ads, but you want to allow people to shop on Amazon, the reference wouldn't work because they actually pass through their one of their engines that does ads. So that's pretty useful like that. Restricting Google apps, it's really Google is very difficult to block partially. So for example, if you want to block Google search and images, but you want to be able to use their Gmail and maybe some of their online applications, like Word, like their word processing. It makes it really difficult because they all come from the same area. I mean, Google's just like one giant site that they redirect. We have actually enabled some special searches in there. If you select this, like it says on there, though, you have to have an HTTPS inspector because we actually have to look at the entire URL, not just the domain, to do effective searching. One feature that I find really useful, especially in companies that have a multi-tiered organizations, for example, you have a CEO, some vice presidents, a director, but then you also have a whole list of people that are more heavily blocked. So what you can do is, if you don't have multiple racks, you can use this unblock system where you could, it has a unblock button. I think I showed you that, for example. So here I have this unblock for now button, and that allows me to bypass the block thing and continue on there, even though it's blocked. In this case, there's no password to it, and it allows me to continue. But you can do things like you can do a permanent. If you want to avoid people clicking on the unblock all the time, you can make it permanent where it automatically adds that as this pass site. The other thing you can do, what I was getting to, is you can require a password. So that password can either be the Untangle password, which I usually don't recommend, or you can do a custom password. So, for example, executives at a company could have this password so they're not filtered by the same categories as, for example, some of the other people in the company. And that password could be given just to executives. The clear URL cache is just a way of, if you're having difficulties categorizing, maybe you have a corrupt cache because there were some DNS issues. It's one way to just clear it. It's usually not a button to use very frequently. It's best only if you're seeing some weird where you're going into reports and it's not categorizing correctly. For example, you'll see that a bunch of them say miscellaneous, things like that. You know, you want to kind of go on and maybe clear the cache. So that is the advanced features. One thing I wanted to go over that I didn't have in the slides was reports. Of course, in 11.2, we really expanded reports, and some of these pre-made categories will be really helpful. I especially find these top categories. So I can see, like, this is actually my home, and what kind of places and categories that people are going to. And I can select that and say, well, you know, it looks pretty even right here across the board, but let's say the social networking was just like off the charts. It was like, you know, 80% of what was going on. This is really useful in a business because, you know, you don't want to block everything out of business and, you know, make it where, you know, people just don't want to come to work because they're so limited on their internet access. But again, if you find that, you know, 50% of your traffic is going to social networking sites, you might want to decide to start filtering that out somewhat. I can also look at what sites people are going to. As you can see, Facebook, Instagram is probably a large amount here. Looks like Craigslist and real estate sites. The other is just everything else put together. It's not miscellaneous. It's just there were so many it only takes like the top 9 categories and item the graph out with those 9 items, and then it just lumps everything into other. So some of the useful things like you know, you can say you don't really care about Instagram or images on Craigslist, and then you can kind of see what more the services look like. Top domains is really useful too. I can see where it's going. You can see I use Untangle quite a bit. And then that gives you an idea of where people are going. You can see Facebook is quite popular. And then next, this is actually Netflix. It's there. Again, every web session is categorized automatically. You don't need to click on the flag. If you want to separate out and there's some categories that you're interested, that's why the flags, it will separate the ones that you're actually interested. Some of these I'm kind of interested in. It's like I'm always interested. It's like, how often does someone go to a search engine, for example? And that's what I have clicked here. It's not blocked, but it is flagged, so there's a separate category. I can also look at the blocked sites. Usually that's not that interesting, just to see. I can see my Yahoo. As you can see, this was an encrypted port, but yet it still it knew the domain and it blocked it correctly. So it's kind of useful too.
Hey, John. There's some, if you go back to the reports, there's some questions that just popped up on the reports I wanted to ask while you're in this area. They're about customizing the reports. Some of them are, you know, can you make a report on a specific user, and is there, you know, ways to customize to omit certain things to make it easier to read?
Yeah, so one of the most powerful parts of the new reports is this conditions area. In my case, I don't use any kind of Active Directory connector to label it, but you could do things like if you're like using Directory connector, you could put a username and the name of the user. In this case, what I could do is use host name. And let's see if I can remember the IP address. That's probably not right. So let me delete that. Let me grab that. So you can actually filter out by any of these columns. You can also filter out by location. So I can say I want to see how many times, let's see, that column will be host. And I want to see how many times someone goes to google.com. So that gives you an idea. You can really filter that out, and you can add as many conditions as you need to. You can also do some wildcards ideas like this. It's SQL based, so if you know SQL commands, you can actually put some of those wildcards in there. And that brings up any revision of Google and so forth. Let's see. Just kind of going over the questions here. Let's see. In a school environment, how do I restrict YouTube videos and only YouTube for education? So YouTube for education actually has been dropped by Google, which owns YouTube. So the way they have it now is they have where you actually develop an account with YouTube, and then you only allow access to that particular special URL they give you. You can find out more information on that by going to YouTube and look at their education link. They actually have a whole process that you have to go through. You have to sign up, and you have to actually go through YouTube now. Trying to look at some of the questions. Any advice on blocking extensions like BrowseSync? Yeah, that is a VPN service actually that works as an app. The best thing, I don't know that one specifically, but I have gone through and blocked some extensions on a company site. The way you have to do it is actually go into Session Viewer, which what I would recommend. It's pretty useful. So I can look at all my sessions and then activate that on your own machine, and then you can filter it by your own machine and see what kind of chain traffic it does, what IP addresses, what domains, and then block those areas, and that should help you. A lot of these VPN services, like that, anonymous VPNs, are very difficult because they have such a large chain of sites they go to. So they have like a rotation they do. And they also change those domains. So it's a little bit of kind of an arms race between blocking them and them trying to find ways around it. So that's what I would suggest. Regarding customized removal, I would like to remove certain columns since they provide no value. That's a great thing. So any kind of column area like this, whether it's in Session Viewer or inside reports, here I'll just bring up the web filter since we're talking about that. So if we go over here, web filter, and we click on all events, you can change these columns to anything you like. So if you click on any column, you get a down arrow and go to columns, and then you can select any one you want and unselect ones that are no use. For example, for me, username is not useful because I don't use Active Directories. So there we go. We shortened my list. And then you can change these to anything you like. Let's try and get another question here. Okay, it says, looks like sites like CNET.com and ESPN take a long time to load, all the ads. Is there something that my filter can do? So there's kind of a caveat with blocking ads and so forth. You can block the ads. It will come up quicker because what happens when the ad gets requested, we actually bring up the Untangle block page. So sometimes things like some sites you'll actually see where the ads are going, but you'll see your Untangle block page in those areas because they're doing. The caveat with that, there are some sites that have gotten wise to this whole ad blocking, and in reality, that's how they provide the service, through ads. So they're very conscious about making sure their ad revenue is continuous. So some sites wait until the ad actually loads before they show you the content. So if you block, for example, if you pick like online ads category, let's see where that is. Yeah, online ads. If you block it, you may have a problem with some sites not being able to load because they're waiting for their ad to load, and when they see their ad is not loading, they don't list the content that you're looking for. CNN.com and ESPN is probably not in that category. They don't have that many problems with that, but it may help you load it for quicker. I mean, honestly, they use a lot of video, and that may cause it to load quickly, load a little bit slower. I have tried to, I'm looking at one of the questions, I've tried to block Yahoo Mail in the past, but I was unable to isolate it from other Yahoo processes. How can I block Yahoo Mail? Yahoo Mail is one of those ones that you will have to have HTTPS inspector. It is possible to block their mail service, but you have to go through the process of setting up HTTPS inspector to actually look at the entire URL, because if the entire URL is blocked, you can actually block it because it's specific to Yahoo Mail. I'm looking at if process HTTPS traffic by server IP is enabled, will pass sites still apply to those? Classified by IP. That, as you notice, I don't have that one checked because it becomes kind of a dangerous one to use. If the browser is not providing SNI information, it only sees the IP address, and then it's going to be blocked. So if you pass by a domain name, but the traffic is seen only by IP address, it will block it because it won't know that domain is not going to match the IP address. So unless you're having very specific problems with certain IPs going through with HTTPS traffic, I don't recommend that one being checked, but it is something you can use. Oh, session viewer. Where is session viewer? So there's a couple ways to get the session viewer. Either over on your rack, there's down here, it says show sessions, or if you double click on your little sessions counter, it will pop up. So it's available from a couple sites. Historical reports. What determines how far back you can go in reports? There's a couple things. So first of all, in reports, you can look at your generation data. This data retention, number of days. As you notice, I have a year. I also have a pretty large drive, and I've actually formatted my home router a couple times just because I'm always changing and trying new things. If you have enough hard disk space, you can really change this number to anything you like. It's really a function of hard drive, and the problem is if you do a long report, let's say I want to do a report for, let's say, several months. It's very hard disk intensive, so it may slow down your traffic depending on the ability of your router.
Hey, John. There seems to be some questions about, web filter and HTTPS inspector. Can you just briefly go over what the benefits are of having both of them, since I know these applications work so closely together?
Yeah. So technical-wise, it's quite complicated the way it works. Basically, if you use HTTPS inspector, you're going to basically allow the certificate that you generate on your Untangle to be used by multiple machines behind it. as far as blocking sites and so forth, it's really simple. So with SNI, most browsers will pass just the domain name that the web filter can see. With HTTP as an inspector, you can actually see the entire URL. So not only the domain, the subdomain, and also all the parameters that are sent with it. And all that contributes to the blocking and better categorization of the site it's going at. It's kind of like the example we were talking about with Yahoo Mail. While we know it's going to Yahoo if we don't have HTTP as inspector, so it's really hard to allow searches on Yahoo but not allow Yahoo Mail. With the HTTP inspector, we actually know that they're going to mail because of the parameters behind the domain name. So the only way to see those parameters behind the domain name is with HTTP inspector. So it's really like when you're looking at like a stream, like a river stream. While if you don't have HTTP inspector, it's like looking at the stream to see what's passing through the stream from 40 feet. While with HTTP inspector, it's like being right on top of the same stream of water where you can see everything that's passing through it. Let's see. How much hard disk space would it need for 365 days? Well, that's I hate to say it, but it depends. So it's really on the amount of traffic that you have. The best thing I can suggest, and what I do, is I set my traffic at something like 30 or 60 days, and then I wait about 2 or 3 days and see how much of my hard disk is taken up. Once I see that, for example, I have mine set up for 360 a year, and I've only taken up maybe a quarter of my 60 gig drive, so almost nothing. But again, there's not that much traffic going through here. At a business, we have far more computers behind that, so you really have to kind of adjust it. My suggestion is you can start with 365 and see how the hard disk space usage gets used up, or you can just but you need to monitor that, because if your hard disk gets full, you'll actually start getting a lot of errors, because Untangle won't be able to write to the disk because it's so full. You will get alerts. The best thing to do is set up the alert and see how quickly your disk is filling up. Is it possible to see web filter conflict? I'm not too sure what that's meant. You might want to expand on that. HTTP inspector sounds great. Why is yours not turned on for the demo unit? This is actually a home unit, and I actually have it on a test site. So I use multiple browsers, and I actually use it for testing. HTTP inspector is great. There's a lot of work to get that set up, because you literally have to go and generate a certificate on your Untangle and then install it on every machine that's behind the Untangle, because otherwise you'll get a SSL inspection error on it. So it requires a lot of installation on all the machines behind it. If you're running like a Windows Active Directory, you can actually pass out that certificate through your group policies. So generally, HTTP inspector, either it's a small amount of machines behind it, so you can go through and install it, or you have a large system, but you're using some way of installing on those automatically, because otherwise you have to go to every machine and install those certificates. And we have some actually information on installing those certificates on the wiki. So if you want to get the idea of the amount of work, you just go HTTP inspector, and then you just go over here on client configuration. And this tells you exactly what you have to do to install the generated certificate on each of the machines behind that. So that gives you an idea. Interesting enough, Chrome uses their own. Chrome uses the same certificate area as Windows itself. Firefox has their own set of certificates, so you actually have to install it directly on Firefox.
All right, John, we're kind of running out of time, so I'm going to wrap this up. So I know there's a lot of questions coming in, so we will try and follow up with as many of these as we can. If you have a specific question, please reach out to us at sales@untangle.com, or you can always reach us in support@untangle.com. John just showed the wiki, which has a lot of resources. We also have Untangle forums where you can post questions or look up past questions and view. We have our engineers on there all the time. John's on there every day answering questions. I have just one quick announcement. Katie, our sales director, has some exciting news.
Great. Hey, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join today. I think this is a great session. As John mentioned at the beginning of the call, WebFilter is probably our MVP of our product offering, and as you can see with the demo today, it's a great addition to any firewall filtration device that you might have in place. So before we wrap today, I just wanted to give you an idea of we are extending a promo we ran in December for our U10s. If you have a smaller network, or you have possible customers or anyone who would benefit from a smaller device, we're actually going to extend our great offer that we ran in December. We're running our U10 with the complete package purchase. The hardware itself drops from $799 to $399. So if you're interested in taking us up on that offer, feel free to email sales@untangle.com for a coupon code. Again, that is a U10 when purchased with a complete package, you get the hardware device for $399. So if you think you can benefit from that or know somebody that could, please feel free to contact us, and I'm happy to work with you on getting a coupon code for checkout.
Great. Thanks, Katie. So like she said, just contact us at sales@untangle.com. Our next Tech Talks is next month, February 9th, and it's going to be on Directory Connector. I know we got a lot of feedback on other Tech Talks that you guys want, so we're taking those into consideration, and we'll plan those out for the rest of the year. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thanks again. Thanks, John, for the great demo, and have a great day, everyone.